The environment we're in right now, public or private, is interesting. I'd say transparency on executive pay and governance is at an all-time high. Shareholder engagement on executive pay is at an all-time high. The influence and impact of proxy advisory firms is at an all-time high. Many private companies, either intending to become public, are getting much more close to these rules sooner than they used to. And for the companies that are maintaining their private status, are looking at some of this and separating out some of what's noise for them and pulling from that the true governance and compensatory practices that can really help make a business better. And so I think the climate we're in right now, while challenging, both legislative and from a regulatory perspective, is also one that lends itself well for a company to take a fresh look at not only the governance practices for their pay programs, but the plan designs themselves. There are no perfect plans, there are no perfect programs. Businesses evolve, their life cycles change, the regulatory and tax and other legislative climate is always moving.
What are the practical implications of this? What does this mean to us as we design it? Well, in 2012, especially as we started getting towards the end of the year, a lot of our clients came to us looking for ways to accelerate income into 2012 from 2013. They were actually looking to tax me now because it's lower rates. I'm pretty confident that my rates are going to go up. I'll take it as income now rather than defer it into next year. Now that the income rates have gone up, we expect to see that work the other way around. We think executives are looking for opportunities to defer compensation again from 2013 into a future year. Now, your guess is as good as mine as to what your future rates will be, whether you'll be in the top bracket, personally, or whether the brackets themselves will change. But the general rule is pay tax later rather than now whenever you can, and so defer, defer, defer. It's offering employees the ability to make a different election on how they're going to receive that year's deferral and when they're going to receive it each year, keeping them separately tracked, separately accrued, in separate buckets, so that as things change for an employee, they can change their elections to accommodate for that. And also taking advantage of the provision that allows you to extend your deferral for more than, if you do it for at least 5 more years, without it being deemed to be an impermissible change. Those are things that you can build into your deferred compensation plan to allow for more flexibility. We're never going to get back to where we were, but a properly designed plan with a good administrator can really offer a lot of flexibility.
I do want to give kind of an overview of this compensation committee concern, and Dodd-Frank described the regulations, talk about some implications for board members and those determinations, and then talk about some practical consequences of that. But one very timely point to all that is that there is a disclosure requirement that kicks in 2013 for the first time. Annual meetings that occur after 1/1/2013, there has to be a disclosure about whether or not in your proxy, whether or not you retained a compensation consultant and a conflict arose, and if so, you have to describe what you did about that conflict. There have been more and more required disclosures about compensation consultants and proxies for the last few years. This is a new level of disclosure specific to, is there a conflict with your compensation consultant?
The board must consider whether that director receives any kind of compensation other than director fees from the company. So if there's any kind of consulting relationship, any kind of advisory relationship, that has to be considered in determining whether or not they're independent. They also must determine whether or not there's any other kind of affiliation between the director and the company when determining if that director is independent and can sit on the compensation committee and be independent from management and make independent judgments on executive compensation. One example of affiliation is being a shareholder. So pretty much every independent director is going to have that affiliation because most companies have ownership requirements. So everybody's going to have that, but it's not a disqualifying event. It's just something that's to be taken into consideration when the board evaluates whether their compensation committee members can truly be independent.